What happens when the very institutions meant to uphold justice are hijacked for political gain? When those in power, instead of protecting the people, go to great lengths to defend criminals and punish those doing their job? We're witnessing this exact scenario unfold right now in Congress, where not only are insurrectionists being pardoned, but members of Congress performing their constitutionally protected oversight duties are being targeted. Representative Mac McIver, simply doing her job, now faces criminal charges while violent criminals walk free. In the face of this, Speaker Mike Johnson remains silent. This isn't just politics, it's a direct attack on the very foundation of our democracy.
Gentlelady yields. Chair recognizes the ranking member of the entire committee, Mr. Raskin.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The Department of Justice announced that it would demote the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act and not bring prosecutions there. It sacked 17 inspectors general when it started, people who saved us a combined $91 billion last year in ferreting out waste, fraud, abuse, and corruption in the government. It pulled the plug on the corruption prosecution of Mayor Adams in New York after Mayor Adams agreed to engage in a political alliance with Donald Trump, which then prompted the resignation ultimately of 6 or 7 attorneys, including the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District, Danielle Sassoon, who was a conservative Federalist Society lawyer and a Republican. Her number 2 also quit, saying that you'd have to be a fool or a coward to give in to this kind of pressure. Then they decimated the Public Integrity Unit. They dismantled the Kleptocracy Unit in Department of Justice. They shut down other units focused on stopping foreign interference in American politics. Mr. Fox, why is prosecuting white-collar crime with specific enumerated offenses with the definite material elements in the crime, why is prosecuting white-collar crime important?
Yeah, so I looked, it seems like there's about maybe 7% or give or take of crimes that DOJ prosecutes. It seems like that will fall under the white-collar category. I think, there's a lot of the work that the federal government prosecutes are things that far exceed the doctrine of enumerated powers, or things that the federal government has absolutely zero business getting involved in. I think white-collar crime is one that arguably can fall under the ambit of the federal government, and it's something that is important to, discourage political corruption, make sure that people are, being prosecuted because the Department of Justice has evidence that they committed a crime, and they're not being prosecuted because of, what their political views are, or that they're not being let off because of what their political views are. People don't trust a system that targets people or that ignores people based upon the views they espouse or the people they support.
So do you think that undermines public trust in the justice system?
Oh, dramatically.
It sends out the message that we have this 2-track system, one for people who engage in kind of the run-of-the-mill state law crimes like assault or theft or robbery, and then one for white-collar criminals in the government or in corporations or in politics who are able to get away with it if they know the president or they know the right person.
Yeah, I think that's right. And also goes back to the question Ranking Member McBath asked, which is, about are they going to target people who they know will fight back versus won't, or won't have the resources to? So I think, that's all very related there.
Yeah. Have you studied the whole question of whether there is systematic inclusion of a mens rea requirement, so we're not putting people in jail for most regulatory offenses?
Yeah, so a lot of regulatory offenses, and frankly also a lot of statutory crimes, don't include a mens rea. The theft charge that I talked about before in the Moore and Mansell case, if I were to take Mr. Canaparo's water bottle and give it to Professor Turley, we're on federal property, technically I could be charged. That's preposterous. No reasonable person would ever think that's theft, but without an actual explanation as to what theft is, that I actually intended to, take his wallet and bring it home with me, people would, they would absolutely, fall victim to these types of prosecutions, which dramatically undermines trust in the system.
Yeah, I understand that the chairman and I think Ms. McBath have this Count the Crimes Act, which suggests that we don't even know how many crimes we have. There's been such a radical proliferation of offenses throughout the federal code. But do you think it would be advisable for us, once we've counted the crimes, to propose a Cut the Crimes Act, where we get rid of a lot of the offenses that transform malum prohibitum regulatory crimes into real criminal offenses that most people would think should apply only to malum in se?
Yes, certainly. I know the chairman also has the Mens Rea Reform Act. I think those two things in tandem, if you set a default mens rea, that way, we're not sweeping people into the criminal justice system over things they didn't know would be crimes. And then also, I'm not sure it's actually possible to count all the crimes, but assuming we can do that, then yeah, then we're able to sort of come to a consensus as to what doesn't belong. But I would also say if we're not able to do that, there's other changes we could do. Like I have an idea that we could just inform jurors that they have the power to acquit against the evidence when justice requires. So in a case where the Department of Justice brings a charge like the case I discussed before, where any rational person would think it's absurd, the jury can be like, you know what, we don't agree with the defense theory, this is nonsense, we're going to acquit. And that's a power they still have.
And I yield back to you, Mr. Chairman. I don't want to commit a criminal infraction here by going over my time.
Too late.
Too late, yeah.
Let's break this down. Representative Mac McIver was carrying out one of the most critical responsibilities of a member of Congress: oversight. Under the Constitution, every Congress member has the right to visit and inspect facilities like ICE detention centers. It's their job to ensure that government agencies are operating properly and fairly. This right to oversee the executive branch is fundamental to our democratic system, and the Supreme Court has repeatedly stated that oversight is central to the legislative process. If Congress doesn't have access to the facts, how can it pass the right laws to protect the people? Yet, in an outrage that defies the very core of the Constitution, the Department of Justice is now charging Mac McIver with assault. That's right, assault. A member of Congress who was simply doing her job is being targeted. This isn't just a political move, it's an attack on the Constitution itself. Members of Congress are meant to be protected from prosecution when carrying out their duties, yet here we have a government agency overreaching to punish someone performing a core duty. This sets a dangerous precedent. If Congress can't even do its job without fear of prosecution, what's left of our democracy? And this isn't an isolated incident, it's part of a bigger picture. Under Donald Trump, corruption, criminality and incompetence didn't just linger in the background of his administration, they defined it. Now this same toxic environment has spread through the MAGA-dominated halls of Congress. But there's one person who's not afraid to call it out, Congressman Jamie Rassin, and what he did this week is exactly what we need more of in politics: an unflinching exposure of the deep corruption festering in our government. Rassin, with clarity and courage, tore into the facade of the Department of Justice's actions, specifically focusing on Pam Bondi's role and Speaker Mike Johnson's complicity. The DOJ's handling of Trump's pardons and the department's failure to support law enforcement officers injured in the Capitol riot are nothing short of shocking. But the most disturbing part is that both Bondi and Johnson, instead of holding accountable those who have broken the law, are more concerned with protecting Trump's violent base. And it gets worse. One of the most glaring examples of this corruption involves a January 6th rioter, Zachary Allum. Allum was one of the most violent offenders on the day of the Capitol attack, attacking police officers and smashing windows to allow others to breach the building. He was arrested and sentenced for multiple felonies, yet Trump's administration decided to pardon him. Why? Because he was part of the violent mob that helped storm the Capitol. But here's the kicker: after being pardoned, Allum was arrested again, this time for burglarizing homes. So let me get this straight, this is who MAGA supports: a violent criminal who was let off the hook, only to re-offend once again. What does this say about their priorities? It's clear that for MAGA, it's not about law and order, it's about loyalty to Trump, even if it means turning a blind eye to criminal behavior. While people like Allum are given a free pass, those who defend our country and uphold the law are left out in the cold. Speaking of those who defend our country, let's talk about the officers who were injured during the January 6th riot. More than 140 officers were hospitalized, wounded or permanently disabled as a result of the riot. Many were beaten, some even suffering broken bones or serious injuries. Yet while Trump and his supporters continue to honor insurrectionists, these officers remain forgotten. The Department of Justice has decided to pay nearly $5 million to the family of Ashley Babbitt, a woman who was part of the rioting mob and tried to storm the House Speaker's lobby. Despite being part of the violent crowd, her family is now receiving a payout. Meanwhile, the police officers who were injured, disfigured, or even killed in the line of duty are being ignored. No compensation, no recognition. Is this the justice MAGA promises? Are we really going to stand by while insurrectionists and violent criminals are rewarded, and the heroes who defended us are forgotten? Speaker Mike Johnson doesn't think the officers deserve a plaque, despite Congress passing a law mandating that a memorial be put up. The families of these officers have been waiting for over 2 years, but Mike Johnson is too scared to upset Trump's base. This is where we are. We're choosing to honor criminals while dishonoring the real heroes who risked their lives for our country. But the most disturbing part of all of this is the larger agenda at play. This isn't just about a few bad decisions. This is about MAGA's ultimate goal, revenge. MAGA's movement isn't about justice. It's about blind loyalty to Trump and punishing those who don't fall in line. It's about reshaping our institutions to serve one person, one ideology, and one vision for America. A vision that doesn't care about the truth, justice, or the well-being of the American people. And this is the real danger. MAGA's attempts to rewrite history, to justify the actions of rioters and insurrectionists, and to silence any dissent against Trump's corrupt agenda, is nothing short of an attack on democracy. They've weaponized the Department of Justice, using it to punish political opponents and intimidate anyone who dares to stand up to them. And the worst part is, Trump isn't just using the DOJ as a political tool, he's using it as a personal weapon to exact revenge on anyone who challenges his authority. But while Trump's followers stay silent, there's still one voice speaking truth to power, Jamie Rassin. Rassin isn't afraid to expose MAGA's lies. He's not afraid to call out the corruption that's become ingrained in our government. He's unafraid to speak the truth, no matter how uncomfortable it makes some people. And that's what we need more of in Congress. People who aren't afraid to challenge the status quo, who aren't afraid to take on the powerful and the corrupt. So what can we do in the face of all this? It's simple. We need to keep the fire burning. We need to stay vigilant and continue calling out the lies, the corruption, and the attacks on democracy. We need to stand with Jamie Rassin and others who are fighting for justice. This fight is far from over, and we must keep pushing back against the forces trying to undermine our institutions. If you believe in justice, in standing up for the truth, in honoring the heroes who risked their lives to protect us, then it's time to take action. Like this video, subscribe for more unapologetic commentary, and leave a comment to show your support for those who are still fighting for a better America. We won't back down, we won't stay silent, we'll continue to fight for the truth, for justice, and for the people who need it most. Stay vigilant, stay strong, and stay loud.